Hi, this is Kai Marie, and this is the Healing Element Podcast, Season 2, Episode 6. Join me and my special guest, Susan Greif, owner of Art Men's Hearts, as we discuss healing through art. Be sure to stay tuned for the entire episode. The first part of the episode, I ended it a little early, so make sure you check out the last bit of information. It is so critical to listen to that because it ties everything in that we discussed. Hello and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast, a weekly discussion giving you the tools to understand and heal from intergenerational trauma. I am your host, Kai Marie. To find out more information about the topics discussed today, visit kaimarie.com. Hi, this is Kai Marie, and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast. I'm so excited to have a conversation today with Susan Greif. Our topic today is healing through art. This is going to be a wonderful conversation for all of you that are listening who may be on your healing journey or just starting out. I think that you will really enjoy today's conversation. First of all, I want to tell you a little bit about Susan. Susan interprets her clients' drawings to help them see their subconscious and notice where they hold their or the ancestral trauma. Her goal is to help her clients release old stuck energies that keep them feeling powerless, paralyzed, panicked, and in pain. And she offers her creative multidisciplinary strategies to help them take action and make shifts in their lives. As a daughter of Holocaust survivors, Susan specializes in working with daughters of Holocaust survivors like herself. Additionally, she works with women of domestic violence, trauma victims, and women in transition. Susan offers one-on-one coaching, couples private workshops, parent-child workshops, as well as online workshops, corporate workshops, and retreats. Thank you so much, Susan, for being with us today, and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast.
Thank you for the invitation. It's so great to speak with you again.
Yes, I know. Yes, we were on the other podcast. That was about a month or two ago.
Yeah,
And
the Lunch and Learn.
The Lunch and Learn, yes, with Michelle and Amber.
Correct.
And so we were able to talk about ancestral trauma, and then we've had a few conversations since then. So I'm really looking forward to kind of diving into how we can use art to begin our healing journey. So to start off, can you tell us a little bit about exactly what is it that the work that you do? Can you describe a little bit of that to us with healing through art? And I'm sure everyone is really interested to learn more.
Yeah, so I think art is a way of seeing our subconscious. As I said before, it's more perceptible, more tangible. So it takes whatever abstract thoughts or memories, anything caught in your memory cells, and it brings it to the forefront. Mm-hmm. So now you actually see what's creating you become stuck in your ways, or you can't move forward, or creates the fear. Mm-hmm. And once you see it, then you're able to accept it, and then to take the actions to make the changes in your lifestyle.
Wow, that's so powerful, because that's the thing too, is allowing yourself to feel and then express it. And through that, then you can start to make those changes, and those maybe incremental changes. So can you share with us a little bit of how you have used art in your own journey to begin to heal?
I really started, I think, by creating drawings, by journaling things that came to me. I think I would have to say I was quite depressed, as I was turning 40, my mm-hmm. children moving out of the house. I was a stay-at-home mom for all the years, and I had no idea what my next step would be. Mm-hmm. And I also go through moments of depression, and when I do that, I go to visit my parents. They're no longer with us, so I go to visit them at the cemetery. Mm-hmm. So there's one really gray and somber day, I went out to the cemetery, and it was I don't remember, I think it was early fall, and I looked around, and right between my parents' stones, there was this yellow, flower.
Aw.
And I looked at it, and like I'm looking around the entire area, like there's not one other yellow flower to be seen. So I went home and I started to draw it. It came to mind to draw this little flower between my parents' tombstones, but this little flower ended up growing and become more like a massive mum tree or something. And it grew like from from this area, this tiny space where there's death, and there was this, it was a weed, right? And it
Right.
grew, and it was dandelion, and I realized, like, even from death, growth can happen. And the yellow flower became more symbolic for me, and it became more like, oh, it's a protection. It's a big tree protecting me and shading me and making me feel calm. So it became a symbol. This yellow flower became a symbol for me. And every time I'm down, all of a sudden a yellow flower seems to pop up, and it's a kind of like a little reminder for me, like, keep on doing what you're doing. Don't be down. Mom and dad are, watching out for you.
Oh, I think that's so beautiful.
Thank you. So that's my symbol. But then I started doodling my dreams, and even in my dreams, the patterns that come up. I think, drawing comes from memory, from our memory cells. Through our pre-verbal days before before we're able to verbalize in our dreams. It's all about symbolism. And it's easier to put it on paper. And sometimes, when you're drawing, you're kind of like in the zone. So active meditation, and you're drawing. And sometimes, like, when you're done, you push it away and you assess it. It's like, like, why did I do that? Or I have no idea why this came out. Why did I not put hands on this person? Why did I put a line across the throat here? And like, all of a sudden these things pop up, and it's done from the subconscious. You can go to a talk therapist and you can omit, you can lie, you can totally forget. But when you're in the zone, meditation wise, things come to you. You listen to, you find your inner wisdom when you shut out the inner critic. So
right. I like that you said that, because that also, that space where you're able to create art, you're not worried about what someone else is going to say. Like, for example, if you are going to a therapist, and obviously there's nothing wrong with that, but just for example, if you are going, you may be hesitant to say certain things. You may be worried about, well, what will they say? How will they respond? Will they judge me? But when you're doing this art, it's kind of like this freedom of expression that you're able to maybe go to places that ordinarily you wouldn't want to go.
Right. And the art doesn't have to be, you don't have to be talented. You can just, it's really not about the art itself. It's about the thoughts, the memories, the emotions that come up as you're drawing it, and then I take the drawings and I have them write about it, write what comes up for them. Wow. So now it's like concrete, it makes it tangible. And I look at their drawings and I interpret it. I will ask questions. Of course, I can interpret it in my own way, but that's a perception of me. I need them to be interpreted by their perception. So I would ask questions from, why is this here? What's going on? Why is this dark? Or why is this, and I see things in there, and things that are missing, and things that should be or shouldn't be. And it's very interesting what comes up for the person. So even the first session, there's always an aha moment.
For sure. And so I think the drawing, like you said, you're able to kind of go there and express, and also that reflection piece. And yes. I think that's so important when you are on that healing journey, to sit back and reflect and ask those questions. Why did I do that? And I think of myself sometimes, if I respond a certain way, it's like, I wonder why I said it in that manner, or I wonder why I felt a certain way when someone had spoken to me in a certain light. And so what you're saying with the artwork that you're creating, that then allows that time for reflection to think yes. about, why did I do that? And again, healing occurs there. As you said, you can recognize any patterns, anything that you Correct. Kind of see throughout the pieces that you're drawing. That's so powerful.
Yeah, so it's important to, and it gives you a chance to assess. Now, you have it on record. And if you do
Right.
several drawings or, all of a sudden you're going to find the pattern, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of like, if you're a painter, and you want to paint the sky a certain blue, and there's like, how many clouds do you really want it? And you do it all. And then all of a sudden you take a step back and say, I want more clouds, or I want sun coming in. And you reassess, reevaluate, and then you can tweak it.
Right.
And everything is flexible. There's that whole neuroplasticity, the ability to change things in your mind and your brain.
Right. Now, for those, and you kind of mentioned this, that are just saying, listen, I don't know how to draw. I don't have like a drawing bone in my body. And I'll say this, my father is an artist, right? So this is like, his doodling is like, let's go hang that up on the wall. He passed none of that on to me. My stick figures need work. So for those that are listening and they're like, oh, I'm really interested in this, but I don't even know if I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to write, or I'm not confident in those abilities. What would you say to them?
I would say I work with 2 or 3-year-olds. Can I show you what I've done, what I've interpreted from 2 or 3-year-olds?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Is that okay?
Okay, perfect.
Okay. You have to. I guess you have to able me, or you have to create a host. Make me a host, if that's possible.
Okay, hold on. Let's
go into participants and make me a host. I think.
All right.
If not, no. Oh, yeah, I'm a host now. It's great. Okay, there you go. Okay. I'm going to share this, not this particular one. Okay, so here. So this was a 3-year-old, and she was from the inner city schools, and that's when I did my internship. And this little girl was angry at her mother for several reasons. And she had, if you can see here, this little face of her mother right here. You see like the eyes and the mouth.
Yeah.
And she scribbling like out of anger. And then she had the dot art. Do you remember the dot art? There's like a art.
Yes.
So she was busy like banging up against this, like out of punching the paper to the point where she was tearing it. And that was energy released for her. Right. So that's how I see it, and here she is again, scribbling, like I wrote down mom here, that's anger, that's anxiety, just scribbling out, like, as if though you're erasing somebody out when you're angry.
Right.
So, I mean, that's that's the 3-year-old. I mean, but then you have an adult who draws like this, and that's okay too,
Yeah,
it's like
more my style.
Yeah, so, it doesn't really matter. I mean, these are adults, so it doesn't really matter about the art. I'm not looking for the specific art. I can show you later afterwards, but more if you like. But it's really not about the drawing. There's no judgment, and that is something we need to learn, because if we feel judged, that's because we do judge.
Right. And so when people come in and work with you to attend one of your workshops, do they is there like this nervousness about the actual drawing part, or is it about like that opening up, like, oh my gosh, what may come out of this session together?
Well, it could be one or the other. First of all, everybody comes in anxious. So I say, okay, everybody draw this. And like, everybody's like anxious. And it's a positive thing, because through the anxiety, you can't think, right? When you're anxious, part of, the adrenaline rush is like, you can't really think. And this forces you to focus in one area. I've worked with women who didn't want to draw. Let's say if I asked them to draw a family drawing, and she just sat there and she just like scribbled it, blacked out the entire page, as she really wants to black out the memory.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because she was releasing anxiety, right, and energy. But during those 5 minutes, she was processing the memory in her head. So it wasn't like she didn't have to show anything, but it's being processed. And then you have to write about it. And she was like really upset about it. And then, but when it came time for her to share, she kind of like let it all out. Like she exploded because she needed to get it out. She was covering it. So she was having a hard time covering that volcano that she finally gave her an out to open up. And there's like a volcano eruption, there's a release that happens when you finally accept what is being, what you're sharing. And, I always try to make my workshops, community safe. I call it Vegas, when it happens in Vegas, stays in Vegas.
I like that.
So, and then what happens is most people realize, like, you're not alone. I'm not alone in this. And thank you for sharing. Everybody appreciates the share.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. That's so key that you said that about not feeling alone, because many times when we go through those traumatic experiences, that's the feeling, that you are alone, that nobody cares, or no one knows what you've gone through. You're the only one going through it. But you creating that safe space allows
Yes.
other people to really connect and say, wow, we've had maybe a shared experience. Or actually, even you, Susan, putting the workshop together, that's showing me that someone cares.
Right.
And, especially if you look at childhood trauma or ancestral trauma, there could be that feeling that, no one cares what I've gone through. But creating that safe space with other people that maybe have gone through something similar as you,
Right.
it's that release and that love that's felt, that's so powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually started when because I am a daughter of Holocaust survivors, I became part of Facebook pages that dealt with daughters of Holocaust survivors or children of Holocaust survivors. And there was a lot of emotions that were coming up on the pages there. And that's when I said, you know what, I'd be happy to offer, a complimentary workshop to meet in person, because you can say whatever you want, behind the camera, and it hurts people. Everybody's triggered. So, because everybody shares the experience, but there's a similar trigger to the experience.
Right.
So when they met in person, it became more of a sisterhood, opposed to, because now they opened up their hearts. And everybody understood, and everybody shared their stories, and they did not feel alone. So that was like the beginning of, so when I do workshops, I work with different groups of women, and even mother-daughter workshops. I work with kids who have a hard time communicating with their parents, couples workshops. So, I've worked with women going through breast cancer. I've worked with, young adults with, certain disabilities and so forth. So there's lots of different groups, and they all share similar stuff. And I think it's, I think it's important to create a community, so you're never feeling alone.
Right. That's so true. And when you were talking, it reminded me of, this was last season, I interviewed a woman who was a yoga teacher, and she was saying that sometimes her clients will come in and say, oh, I have like a neck pain or something like that. But it's actually, when she starts working with them, she realizes like, oh, this is due to some type of emotional type of something that you have going on. But this person, this would, be a person that was like therapy. Oh no. And so we started to kind of delve into that and look to see how a person kind of reconnecting to their body and becoming, feeling safe within their body, that could then lead to them actually going to a therapist. And so when you were talking about the experience of that one woman, that was like drawing and with the black, and it's like that release, and then her telling her story could lead to her, if necessary, going to therapy and saying, listen, like, this is what I drew this thing. I didn't even know this was in me. I didn't even know I had experienced trauma. But through going to your workshop and that interaction, she could say, okay, I'm ready to talk about it.
Exactly.
How amazing is that?
Exactly. So, step one is willingness, right?
Right.
And, it's like the adage, it's like, if there's a will, there's a way. And, if you will, you will, you won't, you won't. Yeah, the same thing.
Right.
So, so that's great. So, just creating, just the fact that they show up, that's willingness,
Right.
The fact that we do this drawing, and telling you, it's not an easy thing to dive into Pandora's box, because you just never know what will come out. So there's the fear also, like you were talking about earlier. Are they afraid to share? And and I always respect them. If they're in the workshop and they don't want to share, I totally have to respect that. It's about creating a safe environment. So
right. Now, you did say you have some like mothers and daughters also that participate, and we talked earlier about family. So does that get a little kind of I guess it's all sensitive, but I guess a little bit more sensitive, like, because if you are drawing, you're there with mom and dad, does that ever kind of add to a little bit anxiety about what is then like now having the conversation, just the fear of hurting someone's feelings? Does that ever become an issue?
No, because I always end up with, what do you need from the other partner? You know, what is this? You know, this is why you're acting a certain way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, but what do you need? Like, or, you know, how, you know, draw something about you don't think the other person knows, you know, about, or
Mm-hmm.
draw something that you want from somebody else. And when you share the drawings and it
Mm-hmm.
comes up, like, oh wow, like, I didn't know that, I didn't know this about you, or how come you never told me this is what you need, or, you know. So, and then they get homework to do. So it's not just like going to, like I said, talk therapy, where you vent and you complain and you walk
Mm-hmm.
away and come back to another the therapist the following week.
Right,
You get
right.
homework assignments, like,
Mm-hmm.
what can you do to make the change this week for this other person, you know? Can you do what this other person requested? If not, can you break it down to smaller steps?
Mm-hmm.
So things like that. But I can I just go back and just show you like a couple of pictures or not?
Yes, I would like that for
Okay.
sure.
Okay. So I mean, let me go back, because you were talking about chakras before, and
Yes.
I do want to share with you that I had a woman that came to me. She was a daughter of Holocaust survivors who,
Mm-hmm.
and she complained about her migraines. Like, she can't stop having migraines. So I said, okay, let's draw a picture of the first time you had a migraine. So I'm going to share this with you because it's pretty powerful. Hold on.
I would like that.
Let me see. Let me find that picture. Of course, here it is. Okay, so please, I hope your audience won't be offended by the symbols that are in here. This is daughter of Holocaust survivors, and her first memory of getting a migraine was in
Mm-hmm.
bed as a child, fear that the Nazis are going to come and get her.
Wow.
So she drew a picture of herself, you know, with her head on the pillow. But if you look at the pillow, it cuts right through her throat, opposed to the back, right? Pillows are go in the
Yes.
back. So it cuts through the back, so through the throat. So we did a body mind connection, and we did a body dialogue to talk about what is it in her throat, what is
Mm-hmm.
blocking it, and asking it what it needs. And the truth is, this is a woman who is afraid of asking for things, so, and expressing herself. And I wasn't going in, because not everybody knows I do the chakra work unless
Mm-hmm.
you've worked with me long enough, but I knew
Mm-hmm.
in my mind. So we did a body dialogue, and from it, she said she needs to ask people, because when she used to ask her mother for things, her mother would shut her down. And
Wow.
so, you know, so here, you know, like, if you feel like you're suffocating,
Mm-hmm.
there's no blood flow that goes to the
Yeah.
body and the mind and the
Right.
brain, and no wonder your mind is throbbing.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that week, I had her, you know, journal, ask a question from one person a day, and write down how they responded,
Mm-hmm.
because not everybody's going to respond the way your mother did. And
Mm.
that gave her permission to speak up and not be afraid to ask. So she's come to learn, like, okay, that's fair, you know. And here's another
Right.
woman with throat chakra issue where, you know, here again, the line is cut through her throat, you see. And she said she was told to be quiet at a very young age. I asked, when was the first time you were told to be quiet, you know, to not to be able to speak? And she remembered drawing this picture of herself in front of the classroom, and the teacher wanted her to share with everybody, you know, the answers, and the kids were making fun of her, that she's a teacher's pet, she's a know-it-all. And she
Mm-hmm.
learned to shut up and never share her brilliance
Wow.
because of this when she was a little girl.
Right.
So, you know, and then there's the whole body mind connection that we talk about. So that was the one thing. And then there is also, I want to share, like, with family or groups, what we do,
Mm-hmm.
drawings like this, like, and it doesn't, like I said, nobody's artistic here, you know. It could be realism, it could be it could be realism, it could be abstract. Now, for this instance, like, you know, add to people's drawings, what do you think they need? you know, and you go around and over here, if you see this area here, this woman originally drew trees here, only lines. She was very vertical, right? And then when you came back, she found this warm sun and like little flowers and warmth everywhere.
Oh, I don't think are we on that one?
Do you see that one? No?
No.
Okay, let me see if I can, do you see this now? Sharing is paused. Why is it paused? Bring your shared window. Oh, maybe because I have to go out first. Hold on.
Okay.
A second. I apologize.
That's all right.
Let me go back to share screen. Hold on. Okay. Experience. There you go.
Here we go.
Drawing? Okay.
Yes.
So this is a group drawing, and you know, I gave a prompt, and then some of it, like I said, is abstract, and some of them is realism, right? And everybody had to write down what they need or who they are, and this was done actually in a women's network group. So you know, and how do you deal with clients who are different than you? You know, how do you have to adapt to your clients? So this was one of the ways that, you know, this is who I am and how can you adapt to somebody else? And I said, okay, either you do markers, crayons, pencils, either draw abstract or real, and then you add to people's drawings. Now you have to go back to the original medium and the original idea of the original artist. So like this person originally here has a lot of squiggly lines. That was very abstract, but then somebody came around and added flowers and hearts, which is not abstract. So they're imposing themselves on this person's drawing rather than working with the person, right? And there's the one over here I was telling before. There's this woman here. She drew these like straight lines. They're trees. You know, very vertical, and she is that type of woman, like very, you know, stiff and vertical. And she came back to the table. She says, "Oh, there's some sunshine and warm, and there's flowers." And she's like, "You think people are trying to tell me that I need to like, you know, warm up and be softer?" I said, "You know, it's your interpretation that counts, right?" So, you know, and this can be done with family. This can be done in organizations and corporations and all kinds of workshops. This is like a fun thing, like, you know, you give and you receive. And that's what I love about this, is to give and receive.
Right, I do too. And I think what's so important that you said, especially if you're working with families, is there is no judgment, right? So no one's gonna walk away and say, why did you share that or what? It's just like, okay, so now that we see this is how whomever in the family express themselves, now what do we do? I really like that. What do you need? What can we do to help this relationship improve, work, heal? That's awesome. And that's so important. I mean, because it's one, there is, both parties have to take some responsibility, and that's a huge part in healing, is to kind of say, okay, owning this is where I am, this is how I feel, and now that I have a relationship with someone else, now I have communicated that to you, now what are we going to do moving forward? So both people there's like this shared responsibility.
Exactly. And it's not pointing your finger, oh, it's your fault, you know, in every relationship. It's never the fault of one over the other. You know, even if one of the partners is abusive, it's the fault of the victim for allowing herself to get abused as well. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying, and I know women return to abusive relationships because that's what they grew up with, and until they're ready to become aware of the repeated patterns and start to empower themselves and love themselves, because if they had somebody in their childhood that said, you know, you're nothing, you're worthless, you're garbage, then they don't mind being treated like garbage, and because they believe they are.
Right. And then that becomes normal. It becomes like that's how relationships are supposed to be. So there has to be that part of kind of owning it, to say, okay, this was a learned type of behavior, but I can unlearn it through going through the healing process. And so I love what you said about families, and we did touch upon this about the ancestral trauma too, and all the work that you're doing with Holocaust survivors and the families. Can you share a little bit more about the work that you're doing with that, and then how you're also using your art to help these families heal?
So again, understanding, I think what we have to understand is a lot of children survivors, how they dealt with their parents' traumas was either they became subservient to their parents, like, please the parents, overly please their parents because they've been through enough, you know, or their parents are so abusive because of their trauma that they feel that they need to reject their parents. They need to detox from their parents and they need to get out. So I think it's about trying to understand why their parents behaved the way they behaved. Why did they raise you the way they raised? And it's even like even before wartime. I mean, it's about like, how were they raised, even before the war? So we have to take all of these things into account. Now, if you look at your parent as a child, maybe they were abused, and now all of a sudden you feel bad. There's a little empathy that goes on with that. And with empathy, there's understanding. And then once you understand, you can forgive. And the forgiveness is a massive, massive, transformation, and it's such a great release for your peace of mind in your heart. And a lot of times I think we also have to understand is, what are the lessons did these people teach us? What are the lessons? Why were my parents, they may have been crazy, but why why were they doing this? And what was the lesson that you learned from them? Because once you learn the lesson, then you can move forward. I mean, if you did have, if you had abusive parent who struggled and let's say with food, like there's no money, so they were struggling, they worked hard, and they couldn't put food on the table, and all of a sudden, like it was for me, when my parents came to America, like they had no money, and there's such an importance on food. Like make sure I ate every morsel they put on my plate. And I just remember being like force fed because, and I was angry because then I had to deal with weight issues, like how do I deal with my body weight? And then I came to realize, I said, you know what? My mother went through the war. She was found and put in an orphanage. She had no food. So now I understand like why food was love for her. I understand it now. I mean, as a matter of fact, I remember what prompted this memory was she was feeding my son, like he's 2 years old, and he didn't want to eat his meal. So she said to him, if you don't eat this, that means you don't love me. And that was my aha moment. Like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, was you couldn't equate love and, love is food. She didn't have it. She lost her dad in the war when she was 2. So, it was, a lot of, so we have to start forgiving them because they did the best that they could with what they knew. They didn't read Psychology Today. They didn't read Dr. Spock or anything like that. So if you know your parents love you and they just did the best they could with what they knew, I think we need to forgive them,
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think too, like once we look at our parents as people and not have them on this high pedestal, like they should know everything, like they should be experts in everything. Once you just say, okay, they're people just like me, that means that they've experienced trauma just like I experienced trauma. And once you begin to make it more so, more relatable, for me, it also helped with not taking things as personal, because it's like how they maybe have spoken to me or treated me. Right. It's like because at the end of the day, this wasn't even about me. This wasn't about an experience, a trauma that they had. Correct. So even if it wasn't me who was their daughter, if it was like another person, they would have probably had a similar type of reaction, experience, or situation growing up. So I think that's so powerful. We realize like it's our parents trying to, maybe not even knowing they were traumatized, but working through their own issues and then saying, oh my God, I have another human to raise. Exactly. And how do I manage all of this when I'm still in pain?
Exactly. And sometimes you're so depressed and you just like don't want to get out of bed to help your child and you're very disconnected. There was, I don't know if you know this, there was the FaceTime experiment done. Are you familiar with the FaceTime experiment?
No, I'm not.
So for anybody in the audience, check out FaceTime experiment. I can share the link later on. And it was an experiment done with a mother and a child. I think the child may be like a year old in a high
Mhm.
chair. And the experiment was for her to interact with the child as usual. And then for 1 minute, she has to have a still face and not respond to this child for 1 minute.
Oh my gosh.
And you watch this child trying to engage with the mother, and the mother is not engaging. And all of a sudden you see how upset he starts to get, because like, I need social interaction with you. I can't, don't. So that's what it is. Like, people, if you're in trauma, sometimes you just don't want to deal with, you disassociate yourself, and then you're leaving other people feeling like it's their fault and upset and anxious.
Right.
So, forget the genetic component. This is also the nurturing component of it, that it's hard. It's hard to explain. Like, oh, my mother didn't play with me. Yeah, well, she's probably depressed. Maybe her dad was your dad was beating her up, for all you know. We don't know these stories.
You don't know.
So, yeah. So I think it's very important. I always say, don't hold up a glass, hold up a mirror. Because don't absorb their stuff. Just it's everything that they say to you is a reflection of them. If they're not happy the way you are, it's because they can control who you are.
Right. I think that's so powerful and so true. And again, this is why I think the work that you do is so important with this healing through art, because how many families can have an honest conversation about the traumas that like mom, dad, grandpa, grandma may have experienced. And now because of those traumas, this is why they're kind of showing up in the world the way that they are.
Right.
I mean, so many times we can't even put language to our trauma. So to be able to kind of draw, to write it out, then mom, dad starts making connections, then those connections can help them connect with their children. I mean,
correct.
Beautiful healing
to break the
experience.
cycle.
Yes.
It's about breaking the cycle and stop being a victim, and take the actions,
Right.
I think, as you and I talked earlier, it's like, let's not be victims any longer. We have to start to be proactive and educate ourselves and help ourselves, because nobody else will really.
Right, it's true. And like we said before, if someone is a domestic violence victim and they keep finding themselves in that type of pattern, at some point everyone has to kind of recognize, am I the common denominator here? Not that no one should get abused, but the common denominator meaning, okay, I do have the power then to create change in my life, because I cannot allow these certain people in my life. I can put up those healthy boundaries and not find myself in this situation again. And I think taking that power back is so important for people to really understand.
Yes. Yeah. So it's all about empowering yourself and find the confidence in you, and not be judged, not feel judged. Like I said, if you judge, you're going to feel judged. So if you don't like feeling judged, then stop judging others.
Right. Exactly. What you put out, that you will get back.
Exactly.
So I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. And Susan, if people want to learn more about the work that you're doing, how can they reach you?
They can check out my website at artmenshearts.com. If you want to post it, you're welcome to it. They can email me at artmenshearts@gmail.com. You can check out some of my YouTube channels. Some is bit.ly/Thursday Thoughts 3. I do a coaching, carpool coaching with my friend my colleague Jackie Atchison. I got YouTube channels there, and you have YouTube channel on my group of women called Live with the Vibe. We are 4 coaches. We talk about the heart-to-heart conversations. And follow me on all my social medias at Art Men's Hearts. So, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And while we start to wrap up, I'm just going to ask if you can flip me back over to host, because I don't think I can do it.
Are you not a host? Wait.
So while we do that, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today for this conversation. Please make sure that you check out Susan's Instagram and website. I'll make sure that I put all of that information in the description box. It's important that we really begin our healing journey and find different ways that we can begin to heal and grow. If you would like to learn more about my services, please visit my website, kaimarie.com. And with that being said, if you are watching this video on YouTube, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and also make sure you share and subscribe. And I will check in with you soon. Bye. Okay, guys, so we just wanted to, I ended a little bit too fast. What I wanted to really give Susan the opportunity to talk a little bit more about kind of what to expect when you are going to participate in one of the workshops, and also an important message for you if you are on your healing journey. This is extremely important, and we didn't want to end the program without saying this.
So part of the workshop is also, not only is it about drawing and writing, it's about making the body-mind connection. So I do meditation, and I do breathing techniques, and I do energy work for, if anybody wants to go there. I don't do that in workshops as often, but I do it more one-on-one. I think it's important to do the whole body experience, the mind, body, and the spirit. It's very important to connect all three. So that's why I feel it's important to include all that. And as far as the tip is, we need to learn to have better relationships with ourselves. Because once we have better relationship with ourselves, then we can have better relationships with others. And that can have a global impact on our world.
That's so true. It starts with us, right? And I remember that was like one of our first conversations when we were talking about how important it is for it to start with us, the healing.
Yes.
So thank you so much for adding that. I think that's extremely important and a very powerful tip to end on. So once again, thank you all for listening, and please visit Susan's Instagram and also her website. Again, like I said, that will be posted in the description box. And you all have a great day, and remember, healing is a journey.
Thank you.